Mr. President, you mentioned that you are very grateful for all the international assistance you receive, in particular from the Netherlands. But if we look, for example, at the Kiel Institute figures, they show that European support is decreasing instead of increasing, and this is happening at a very difficult time for your country. The Americans do not pay, and the Europeans cannot support such spending, and in general, military aid is declining. And, of course, Moscow sees it, Washington sees it. And I thought how difficult it is for you, because you are negotiating peace now, and this is a very turning point, and it seems that your negotiating position is weakening. How can this lead to a just and lasting peace at all? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. It is definitely not easy for Ukraine, and there are definitely financial challenges. You can see how we work. Not everyone is happy with the format of how frozen assets can be used. And even if there are other financial legal instruments, these are still binding steps. So, we expect that we can receive 40 to 45 billion euros for 2026 and so on, counting on a total amount of 210 billion. But, of course, we would very much like to use this to restore our state. No one would even think about those or other alternatives because everything has been destroyed threefold. The amount exceeds all the destructions, more than 200 billion. It is fair that the Russians should pay for the destruction, but even 210 will not be enough. But these are the next steps. Today we are talking about urgent matters. These frozen assets tranches are urgent matters. We need to produce drones, we don't have enough funding, we need to produce other weapons, we need to buy air defense in America, other means in Europe, including air defense. We understand that we don't have gifts. Indeed, there is support, there are bilateral agreements. We have bilateral agreements, security agreements with many partners, including the Netherlands. They help us. It's such a really good support. And unity is very important in these decisions. And even where there are some threats of reduction, it is certainly necessary to conduct various types of consultations so that there are fewer reductions. And certainly any reduction does not strengthen our negotiating position. But today, frozen assets could probably somehow balance out some of the reductions in certain countries because that would be really serious support. I don't see any possibility of Ukraine standing strong, economically strong, without this support. I don't see how we can cover such a deficit with some incomprehensible alternatives or incomprehensible promises. That is, we are counting, we know some European instruments, alternatives, to have the appropriate amount. We are counting on this. This is if there is no plan A, but plan B. But, nevertheless, it is important here that in general, the leaders, the majority, are in favor of finding this financial support for Ukraine. But what it will be and when is the next question. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for the President of Ukraine. President Zelensky, this is about the plan of the international security forces. Do you know which countries have already said that they will actively participate in such a force? And will Germany participate in these international security forces? And I also have a question for Prime Minister Schoff. Will the Netherlands take part in sending troops like this? Thank you.
Please.
Okay, I'll say first. So, it is important to understand that yesterday, also in the evening in Berlin, security guarantees became very strong. And this is important because it's not just a coalition of the willing, it's also a strong Ukrainian army, and it also involves monitoring that will be provided under the leadership of the United States, and strong support from the United States, and this whole package. And I want to emphasize this is very important, because it provides a real opportunity for the President of Ukraine to negotiate with Russia. Not comfortable because it's a terrible situation, but he will understand that your country is safe, and therefore peace talks can really happen, and maybe a ceasefire will be a glimmer of hope, let's put it this way. I have always said that we have been involved in the processes of the coalition of the willing very actively from the very beginning, and we have been involved in the planning process, and we know what technically we can do. But in Parliament, I have already stated several times that the procedure, if it is necessary to politically initiate the procedure when there will be a ceasefire, whenever it happens, whether in 24 or 48 hours, we must be very careful with our parliamentary process, because a specific procedure is required in Parliament. And we want to follow all the procedures step by step in order to reach a broad agreement in Parliament on what will be about the involvement of our army in the coalition of willing and security forces.
Just to add a few details to what Dick has already said. You know, we have more than 30 countries in the coalition willing to help, and each country already mostly understands its role or the scale of its contributions, who is ready to provide only intelligence, who is ready to supply troops in Ukraine, or boots on the ground, as they say. We have this in the document. We agreed among ourselves that we will not distribute this document because the coalition of the willing has already decided that it is ready to provide Ukraine with security guarantees only after a ceasefire. It was a joint decision. So after ceasefire, they will be ready, and you will see which country can provide what. There are different statuses according to their own constitutions. I mean different statuses of countries, so they can provide different things. This is due to the leadership of France and Britain as of today. They have developed this joint plan, but there are many countries, indeed, that are ready to help. It's all about security, as we said. Let me just remind you that this is about safety on the ground. That's why I said that some countries are ready to provide support on the ground. It is on ground, in the sky and in the sea. Thank you.
Next question.
Serhiy Sidorenko, European Pravda. I have a question for Mr. President. We heard from our president that Ukraine wants to see the aggressor held responsible for this war. This means a commission for reviewing applications, a special tribunal. And what is your position and what is the position of the EU member states? Would you insist on finalizing these processes? Reparations to Ukrainians, and a special tribunal, regardless of what happens in these peace talks? Thank you. Perhaps, the Ukrainian president would also like to comment on this. As you said, we have taken several steps, as the Dutch government, regarding the tribunal for crimes of aggression in terms of the register of damages as well. And today, I think 35 countries, including the Netherlands, of course, have signed the declaration on the Application Review Committee. And we said that we would accept this commission. And from that perspective, we are fully committed to this process of accountability, justice, and rebuilding a country that has been destroyed. And it is normal from a legal point of view for Russia to pay, despite what is happening in the negotiations. But that's normal, and it's just how it should be. And that's why we are taking these steps as the Netherlands, and that's why we decided to host this commission to review applications, because a city of peace and justice, this is what it should be here.
Next question, please.
The Dutch press. My question is for President Zelensky. Now that NATO membership is no longer on the table, EU membership becomes even more important to you. The Netherlands is still cautious about EU membership for Ukraine. How do you feel about this and how can you change it?
How to change this? The European Union, continuing to answer the question about security guarantees and the coalition of the willing, we have several blocks of security guarantees that are integral to security in Ukraine. And the coalition of the willing is what Europe can provide. There are also other countries in the coalition, as I said, with different statuses, with different constitutions. There is Canada and Japan, which are members of the coalition today. And I think that each of these countries will demonstrate, even though they are not in Europe, they will demonstrate their support. The second or number one is the two-way security guarantees from the United States of America, Article 5 like or Article 5 mirror as it is called. We have already reached the details there, we are working on these details. These must be strong security guarantees, not like Budapest or Minsk, but supported by Congress, legally binding, as they say, legally binding security guarantees that must be supported by the Congress of the United States of America. And strong guarantees for Ukraine are the guarantees of the European Union, economic and, above all, security guarantees for Ukraine, and this is membership in the European Union. We view all of this as a block of security guarantees and believe that if our partners are ready to support security guarantees for Ukraine, then our attitude is that our partners will support our membership in the European Union. I can't say when, what other conditions there might be, but this is our framework understanding and that of many partners, by the way, regarding security guarantees.
Can I please add one thing and we'll be done? Because I think there was a mistake in this question. The Netherlands fully supports Ukraine membership in the European Union. We don't block anything. Other countries are blocking the process in the Council, but there is no political bloc from the Netherlands. I want to say it very clearly. I think you understand, but I want to say it clearly and for the press here. I think this is important.
I fully support you. When we have council meetings and various meetings and many messages, we know who is blocking and why, or trying to block, or is already blocking. The Netherlands is very supportive, and they support our position, and during the war. Your country has been very supportive of our continued membership in the EU.
One last question on behalf of the international press.
Good afternoon. Reuters. I'll sit down if I can. You just had negotiations in Berlin, Mr. President Zelensky. What's next? You go to Miami, Umaro goes to Miami. You are discussing security guarantees again with the Americans. Will it only be about security guarantees, or will you discuss broader agreements, or maybe withdrawal from Donbass, if there is such a requirement? And if you discuss security guarantees like Article 5, will it only be on the table for a limited amount of time? And is it true that if Ukraine refuses to take it now, then this is Article 5 like, if you don't take it now, then there will be a worse deal later?
Lots of questions. If possible, I'll try to answer the general mood because it's difficult to say how many years it is. We are not yet discussing whether it will be limited to some years, certain guarantees, or not. The only thing that was very important for us was what had to be voted on in Congress. We believe that such guarantees will work, although we all understand that this is Russia and this is the aggressor. Whether certain guarantees will stop them in the future, of course, we do not clearly know with you. That's why we want to have all the guarantees as a block. Article 5 like. How will partners react? We want to understand how the coalition of the willing will react to repeated aggression if, for example, there will be. I ask my partners the same questions you ask me. They may not be very comfortable, such questions, but it is very important that people know what that mean. And the answer is 1. If there is aggression, how will the United States of America react? If there is repeated aggression, how will European partners react? How will the world react? Sanctions, weapons, responses, how they will react at sea, on the battlefield. There are really a lot of things here. I really want to get the clearest possible answers to this and that they are, accordingly, supported, as I said, in what format, legally binding. Next, here's an important point that we can count on, because it has already worked. This is our army. And we say that these are security guarantees for us. The army worked, and the people of Ukraine, who mobilized, worked. It is wrong to expect the same thing to happen. We must count on the fact that there are people who have changed professions, who have learned to be military, and after the war, this is their right, they will return home. What can partners in Ukraine do together? Additional funding, offering normal contracts for those who want to continue serving, and simply not losing this experience that they have gained, whether through this tragedy, whether through the war, but many of them have gained this experience, especially in this new technological war. That is, this is a guarantee of security for us, our army, which is financially supported by various formats, and we also need to find support for this. These are roughly the security guarantees. As I said, membership in the European Union, because it is a geopolitical decision, it is an unchanging course for our people, it is irreversible steps, it is an economy for us, it is a large market, and it is this economy that will provide an opportunity to grow economically for Ukraine, which then must also spend these numbers on the army, of course, and on reconstruction, on many different things. This is a whole discussion, what you asked, a whole discussion. And we had such discussions with the Americans in Miami. I will not be there, there will be negotiation groups. They will have feedback from the Russians, I think, and will discuss several documents. Security guarantees and economic recovery and the 20 points of this framework agreement.